This observation is why I was drawn to these men and their strange adventure. Who they are has something important to tell us about the country they helped create. The years of my acquaintance with Isaac turned out to be the years of the great Arab collapse and the destruction of Aleppo, the city of his birth and childhood, in the Syrian civil war. We watched it happen from interview to interview. At the time of our first meeting in 2011, Aleppo was peaceful, and only the synagogues were empty, as they had been since Isaac's family and the city's Jews fled, decades before, with the great Jewish exodus from the Arab world. But soon Aleppo's churches were empty, and many of the mosques and much of the great Arab metropolis were in ruins. We saw people making desperate escapes across the Mediterranean, washing up on Greek beaches, trudging inland with their packs and babies. Throughout the Middle East, the Christians, Zoroastrians, Mandaeans, and Yazidis were going or gone, as well as Sunni Muslims who once lived among Shiites, and Shiites who once lived among Sunnis, and people who think or act differently and don't have a tribe that can protect them. The hatred of people who aren't like you, the idea that something will be solved if only such people can be made to disappear. This sometimes starts with the Jews, but tends not to end there. One of my conversations with Isaac took place not in his kitchen, but at a mall in his neighborhood, where much of the population has roots in the Islamic world, like Isaac, and like half of the Jews in Israel. On the top floor was a video arcade with flashing blue lights, electronic explosions, and crazed parents driven here by summer vacation and the unbearable stickiness outside. The McDonald's was full, and so was a plastic playground in the atrium. At a shop called Aphrodite, scarlet bras were on sale. A woman in orange-rimmed glasses contemplated a lotto form. The children of the Jewish quarters of Tunis and Algiers were here in Ray-Bans and running shoes. The Jews of Mosul in northern Iraq were also here, not in Islamic State ditches with their neighbours the Yazidis, but drinking lattes in the air conditioning, eating kosher McNuggets as their kids howled in Hebrew on the trampolines. These were Israelis, but not the kibbutz pioneers of the old Zionist imagination, orphaned children of Europe. These were people from the Islamic world, in the Islamic world, their lives entwined with the fate of the Islamic world, like the lives of their grandparents' grandparents. This was Israel, but an Israel not visible in the way the country is usually described. At a chain café by the escalators sat the spy Isaac Shoshan, formerly Zaki Shasho of Aleppo, also known as Abdul Karim Mohammed Sidki of Beirut. When he recounted how he saw Israel born, the story had none of the usual characters and sounded unlike any I'd heard, but explained more about the present than any I'd heard. It was a Middle Eastern story. When I left the mall, the streets themselves seemed different. That's when I decided this was a story whose time had come. In telling it, I've relied on my interviews with Isaac and others, on files from Israel's military archive, including many declassified for the first time at my request, on documents from the archive of the Haganah, the Jewish underground army before the creation of the state, and on unpublished testimonies from participants who died before I could speak with them. 2 published histories of the Arab section, both in Hebrew, never translated and now out of print, proved especially useful. The first, by the historian Zvika Dror, was published in 1986 by Israel's Defense Ministry, and for simplicity's sake I'll call it the official history. The second was written by one of our 4 agents, Gamliel Cohen, at the end of his life, and published in 2001. The unwritten rules of espionage writing seem to require a claim that the subjects altered the very course of history, or at least of their war. This is tempting, but rarely true, I suspect, and it isn't true in the case of our spies, though their contribution to the war was significant. Their mission didn't culminate in a dramatic explosion that averted disaster or in the solution of a devious puzzle. Their importance to history lies instead in what they turned out to be. the embryo of one of the world's most formidable